Hi, this is Dan Fagella with Emerj, and this is the second video in our series on advancing your career as a non-technical professional in the era of AI. We've had a huge response since we first started releasing surveys and some email newsletters about sort of building up to this series. It's been hundreds of responses between direct email replies and survey fills. So I've had my work cut out for me in terms of what we're going to be releasing in our big upcoming report. But I wanted to take some time in this video to actually share some of what our other subscribers had to say. In fact, some of you watching this are going to see me read off your replies, what you were interested in terms of learning about advancing your career as someone who doesn't code in the era of AI. Again, for managers, VPs, and consultants. That's sort of the focus for this series. That's the bulk of our readers at Emerj. So I'm going to be going under the hood and sharing a bit of that. I'm also going to be sharing what we're putting together as some additional resources for the big Getting Started with AI launch. So in terms of advancing your career and coming up with a roadmap for doing that, in terms of understanding AI projects and being able to sort of add value along the life cycle of an AI project. What do they really look like in the enterprise? There's been so few of them, relatively speaking, across enterprises that have gone well. What do they have in common? What do those steps look like? We'll get into that a bit. And lastly, you'll want to make sure you stick around to the end of this video as I'll be talking about the actual release of the Getting Started with AI report. We've had a lot of emails about this already. I always get LinkedIn messages. For some reason, that's the channel you guys like to hit me on. So I always have, 8 LinkedIn conversations going on at once. We'll be getting pings there as well. I'll be talking about when that release is actually going to happen, so make sure you hang out till the end of this video. Before getting into our new guides on AI career paths and applying AI, I wanted to first go to what we've learned from some of our surveys. For me, one of the things I kind of teed up in our last video was that there's this big opportunity with the AI career gap. In other words, there will be some professionals, VPs, managers, could be consultants, who get involved in AI early, who understand the context, understand the challenges of applying AI, understand basic use cases at a reasonable level of fluency that'll almost always be pulled into the early AI strategy and planning conversations at their company. And that those early planning conversations will probably mean involvement in early AI projects. And a few years from now, having been involved in actually applying AI within an existing business, learning those hard lessons will be much more valuable and much more rare than an MBA. There's a lot of challenges in actually applying AI, and part of our role is to be able to interpret that and to be able to help big companies with those issues, but also now to be able to help non-technical professionals with helping their companies do that and just rising the value of their sort of resume, rising their value to whoever their employer is, or if they're a consultant, to their client. So we sort of teed up that topic and said, hey, we haven't put together any specific guides on this yet, but from Emerj content, what have you extracted that's actually helped you with your career? And we got a bunch of answers. So I'm going to address that one first, and then I'm going to go into what people asked about in terms of what they want to learn more, what else they want to learn to be able to advance their career. We have some really good examples of that as well. Some of you will see your actual answers pulled up on the phone here, so we'll go over a few. We had a lot of them that had to do with, so there's a couple themes. One is hiring. So people who are either between jobs or were going to leave a position and try to find something at a company that was more exciting and potentially be involved in AI projects at that company. So we have a number of examples of people who are unemployed and listen to the podcast. I work for a Series C AI startup in Europe. I listened to your podcast for 3 months before applying, and I was able to sort of understand their product and customers before getting the position. We have a lot of responses that also fit the bill from more the services and consulting side. So a lot of permutations of I've used what I've learned from you to be able to help my clients in different sectors. We have a lot of people that do consulting work in financial services. So use cases in banking, use cases in insurance was a thing that people were said that they'd gotten a lot of value out of and were actually able to apply to their career. Here's one consultant. Finally, answer your question. I'd say 80% of my reading comes from Emerj. I was very interested in how you structured your Zeitgeist AI series and browsed a lot of your use cases in industry and found this information useful for my work with clients. So we had a lot that fit that bill. The last category is people who are involved in early stage AI planning at their organization, but who don't have technical backgrounds. Again, that's mostly our audience, so people who are getting pulled into these early convos. Okay, yeah, this is decent. So my company is not even close to actually spending money on AI, but we are mapping out actual priorities at this point. For me, being able to be in the room for these conversations as someone who is just a product manager really is mostly because I'm regurgitating a lot of what I'm learning on the podcast and being able to bring that up in planning, a bunch of other information. Some other info about what they're doing at their company or whatnot. So these are sort of representative examples that I thought were somewhat useful, things that people are already extracting from information that we're putting together, which is cool because, again, we haven't really built any guides explicitly for that purpose. We're sort of writing to showcase different use cases, talk about best practices, but we've never put it in one place. But people are finding ways to make it useful. But when I asked, what else do you want to know and what would be helpful to advance your career, helpful to take advantage of the opportunity, prestige, income of the more sort of exciting AI projects that are going to be making their way into enterprise, we got a number of really good questions on that front as well. So here's a few. Specific use cases in various industries that I could have a convincing argument to convince naysayers. We had best practices for adoption and investment in AI, so sort of deciding on what to spend on. We had a number of permutations of career path questions, which I'm actually going to be talking about when I talk about the new guides that we're going to be including in the Getting Started report in a second. But here's one word for word. The career path for technical folks who want to be involved in AI is clear. The career path for folks who want to focus on AI from a business and strategy perspective, however, is not clear. When I look at JDs for anything related, JDs I think is lawyers, for anything related to AI and ML, the role requirements typically ask for considerable technical depth. It's not clear even for folks with a technical background who are interested in working with the AI space, but are looking to do so from a business perspective. So the question is, where are the business AI jobs? Lots to get into there. We'll be talking about that in this video. I'm going to keep it brief, but we're going to get into it. Here's another representative one that a lot of people ask similar questions of. And this has to do with sort of the life cycle of an AI project, being able to kind of foresee what's it going to be like when we actually try to apply AI. And so here's how this one is worded. This is the middle of a much longer, this is like a 3-paragraph answer. I'm going to read you the middle couple sentences. This is a fellow from Sweden. Concrete examples of what end-to-end ML projects look like, from initial business scoping with customers and stakeholders to data collection and understanding, transformation, model evaluation, deployment, and monitoring. Who does what are the common challenges to overcome, and how do you overcome them? What can be automated and what can't? Very, very, very good question. So this is just a handful of some of what's come through. This is from a combination of email and survey stuff. I really appreciated hearing from people who've been able to share what they've already learned from Emerj, and what people want to learn more about has been the inspiration for what's coming up next. So I've been pretty clear in my email newsletters that the reason we're sending out these questions and asking people to spark conversations on LinkedIn and fill out surveys is because we want to be able to put together the most helpful possible resources with the big release of our Getting Started with AI report. As many of you know, most of our work is with the bigger enterprise. If you look at our AI and banking research, for example, the work that we do in insurance, the work that we do in terms of bigger speaking engagements that involve research, these are large organizations. This is the World Bank. This is pharmaceutical companies, large insurance companies. This is most of what we serve. And it's that C-suite audience that gets that transfer on how to apply AI, how to think through solving these problems, how to match use cases to actual issues that they're dealing with in their business or goals that they're trying to get to. The goal here is to be able to crack that open to any non-technical professional, to take people who, like me, don't know how to code. Again, I started off as a martial arts teacher. Many of you saw that in our first video. 6-7 years ago, I was still teaching jiu-jitsu in my small town in Rhode Island. And so 4,000 person town in Rhode Island. So not exactly the best AI strategy career, but people like me who probably have more business experience than I do, who want to be valuable in their company, who want resumes that are more valuable, who want the kind of skill sets that are going to be in the most demand and allow them to be involved in exciting projects, not running legacy systems 3-4 years from now, sort of how business has been done, but who are part of business transformation and the opportunity that goes along with that. And frankly, kind of the career lift that likely goes along with that. So that's the big point, is to crack that open to in a more accessible format to folks that aren't maybe necessarily an enterprise leader. They're just an individual professional who, like me, wants to be valuable to the company that they work with. So that's the big goal. So of the few themes that we know for a fact are going to be guides in this upcoming report are two things. One of them is an actual visual AI career map. That is to say, what are the paths that you can take as someone who does not code in terms of managing AI projects, contributing to AI strategy, contributing to the monitoring, the iteration, the improvement of existing AI projects. What are the different ways to contribute? What would you actually do if you were going to contribute in that way? And how to get started. Now, this is extracted from actual conversations with folks who don't have technical backgrounds, but who somehow worked their way into initial AI positions within their company. So it's based on those conversations, and it's based on working with vendors and asking them, who are you interfacing with? Who are you talking to? Who inside the enterprise do you see actually helping to bring these projects to life? And as it turns out, at a high level and at a low level, it's not always going to be the data scientists that are actually making these projects happen, whether it's banking, whether it's oil and gas, whether it's retail. So based on those insights, there's 7 different roles that we're going to be addressing, and it's going to be a visual map of each. By itself, this is tremendously valuable, and I'm literally certain this is going to be its own report. You will see this for sale at some point on emerj.com. That is not today. Right now, it's going to be included with the Getting Started report as just a free resource. The second resource that we're going to be creating, that is probably 2/3 of the way done, I've been losing sleep over this at present, is mapping out step by step and phase by phase, what is the life cycle of an AI project? What are the challenges in each of those steps? You read the question from our fellow from Sweden who had submitted his question, and that is super representative of what a lot of you had asked for. As you know, we do tremendous number of interviews. This year alone, I might be somewhere in the 400 interview range. In terms of me personally, talking to people on the phone, whether it be for the podcast, whether it be for client research, etc. So getting to see a lot of sort of how AI bleeds its way into companies, how it ekes its way into companies, how it goes through and overcomes different challenges to either flop and fail if those challenges aren't overcome, or to actually become part of business when it's done right. So what does it look like when it's done right, and what are those hurdles? That's going to be mapped out visually as well. Both of these resources are going to be brief, they're going to be succinct, but they're going to be very, very visual. That's the entire goal, is to make them as tight and as useful as possible. Not necessarily a lengthy report that we'd produce for the C-suite, but something that's going to be super succinct and actionable. So you just have a landscape view of exactly what to do in this space and sort of what you can expect. And so those are two things that are going to be coming along with the Getting Started report. So as I've replied to some of you via email already, and as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, a lot of folks have been asking about the Getting Started report, when it's actually going to be released. And I mentioned that I would talk about that at the end of this video, so I'm going to go over that quickly, but this is going to be important. So November 21st through 27th is when we're going to sort of open the doors, open the floodgates for the Getting Started with AI report. That's going to be the launch. We're going to kick it out with an email to absolutely all of our subscribers. If there was ever a time to sort of mark Emerj email as whitelisted or make sure it's not in promotions, it would be now. So if you got this message from an email, or you can find our last newsletter, just white label it or whatever you need to do within Gmail or your Outlook system to make sure we don't land in promotions, because we're going to have a 6-day window here. This is going to be pretty exciting for us, because there's going to be a lot included along with the report. There's a couple things that should be coming up that I'll be releasing on the day that the report is actually launched. And for me, this is going to be a short blitz to give away way more than we would with a normal report. And it's also a first time that we're actually cracking open some of what we learn and apply in the enterprise world, and what we speak of on stage when we're at the United Nations or big industry-leading conferences, and break that down specifically into the kind of career advancing advice that non-technical professionals and consultants need most to raise the value of their resume and their services, their skills. So this is new, and a lot of this is going to be learning. Part of why I'm adding a lot to this and why I want to make this as valuable as possible and get as many people in the door as we can is because I want to learn. We've gotten some great early response for the Getting Started with AI report. In fact, when it's released on the actual page for the report, I'm going to have some of those quotes from folks that have already read it. I'm excited about what they've had to say. I really want to learn what more folks have to say in Europe, in America, in Asia. I want to get different perspectives in geo regions and then use that to sort of inform our future sort of snap-off reports that we do for non-technical professionals. We're always going to have our focus on enterprise. We're always going to do that deep work because without those insights and those exclusive little circles, it's going to be tough to bring really proprietary, useful information to the broader non-technical audience. But we're really considering doing more of this because of how much people responded to that podcast series and to this series of articles. So the 21st through the 27th, that's going to be the time period for this big launch and big release. I want to give a big thank you to everybody who's replied via email, who's pinged me via LinkedIn. Many of you do that a lot, and that's where a lot of my ideas come from, and filled out the surveys, some of the ones that I had actually read out loud here today, because this has been the inspiration to not only release this report formally, but to be able to create the additional guides that go along with it, and the things that are going to be most useful for you all. So I've loved the response thus far. I know I'm going to be fielding additional questions before the big release. I'm going to be plenty busy putting together the final additional bonuses on the 21st. I'll be releasing sort of what else is going to come along with the report. So at least read the email because you're going to want to see what else we're going to be including sort of in these final days here. So big learning experience for me. I've learned a ton having this discourse with all of you over the course of the last month or so. And I think that after this release, we're going to learn a lot more about what else we can create. But I don't know if we're ever going to have as big of a hoopla around throwing in freebies on top of a report as we do on the 21st. So a ton of good stuff coming up. Really have you guys to thank in terms of engagement and giving me some good ideas. So looking forward to catching you in the inbox. I'll see you guys soon.